The Soul Sovereignty podcast is a deep dive into the core wounds and deeply embedded subconscious beliefs that reside within the collective psyche so that you can reclaim your sovereignty and embody your power to experience freedom in your relationships. It is hosted by Jessica Falcon, International Soul Embodiment Guide and Relationship Coach. Visit thepathtosovereignty.com to enter a portal of transformation.
What does it mean to embody your divinity is the topic of today's Soul Sovereignty podcast with myself, Jessica Falcon, International Soul Embodiment Guide and Relationship Coach. And when we talk about embodying your divinity, to embody your soul, to embody your spirituality, like what does that actually mean? Because if we have a different understanding or perception of what the divine is, we're going to have a very different understanding or perception of what it means to embody one's divinity. Now, in many religious traditions, it would be heretical or blasphemous to even presume that it was possible to embody your own divinity, because some traditions don't believe that we have the divine within us. And other ancient traditions recognized the divine within all things. They recognized that God, for example, was not just up in the sky, but God was in the earth. God was in the plants. God was in the trees. God was in each living thing. It's one of the reasons that the ancients carved a lot of figurines that contained the face of a woman, aka the goddess, in trees, because they knew that there was a consciousness. They knew there was a divinity to the trees, to nature, not just outside of life. And then when we started, I would say, the Judeo-Christian belief system, though it really actually began before it became a religion, started to believe that God was only up above, only in the sky, only outside of life. It shifted our perception of life itself, of the body, of who we are, and of each other. Now, a lot of what I do is bring ancient wisdom forth into the modern day world. And a huge part of that is the wisdom of our own divinity and form. And I don't necessarily think that the ancients embodied their divinity either. Particularly, we're talking about 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. They still, even though they saw the divine in all things, I don't necessarily believe that they recognized the divine within themselves or embodied that. There's a difference. It's one thing to say, yes, I have an eternal soul. It's another to live as that, to breathe as that, to experience yourself as that, not as a mental concept, but as the way you be. And this is a journey. Certainly when I guide my clients to embody more of their divinity, to reclaim their sovereignty, it's a journey. It's not an overnight thing and you suddenly become something else, right? You're really becoming more and more of who you actually are. By the way, I have a red cardinal right outside my window. So if you hear some noises, it's the red cardinal like flying right next to the window. And I want to go deeper into divinity. What is divinity? When I'm talking about the divine and what it means to embody your divinity, I'm referring to the divine that exists within all things. There are different ways that I can visualize or tune into this. One is I often think of the source, God's source. Terminology, by the way, you can replace these with any words that you prefer. I used to use the word universe, and there are multiverses, so universe was very limiting to me. I like the word source, right? The ultimate creation, the creator of all things that is beyond gender, that is beyond sex. And I see it personally as light. Now, there's also the void. I'm going to have a different podcast in which I talk more about dark and light and what that really means. But for the sake of this conversation, we're going to focus on, let's say, source, right? This light that is a sun, and it begins to radiate out. So we have the rays of light. I see the light of God's source becoming each individual soul. So the light of our soul is the light of God's source. And we are each fractals of that light, for example. And that's why each soul is its own unique essence. No one is exactly the same, because we have that unique ray of light within us, that we are at our core light. Another way I like to think of this is, we know from modern day science that when two people come together and they create a baby, that baby contains the DNA of its parents. It contains the genes of its parents. Now, can you alter that? Of course, but it contains that, and it will always contain the seed of the parent within them. Just like your grandmother held the eggs that eventually became you. It's amazing, really, when we start to understand how interconnected we all are. And if we have a creator God, goddess, for example, and again, when I say God, I'm talking about beyond gender, then, or beyond sex, that we then, of course, have creator within us. Because if God is the creator of all things, for example, if we believe this, then the seed of creation exists within all things. So therefore, to say that some things or some people contain God and some people don't, you would have to then believe that God is not in all things and God is not the creator of all. And that's where a lot of that discussion of light and dark and good and evil can really take us a lot deeper. It's a chapter in my forthcoming book, because many traditions thought dark and evil was separate from God, and many traditions believed that it was still contained within God, and that's a whole different discussion. Now, we don't become God, because God is in all things. So if we were to become God, right, it's not possible, because God is so much bigger and all-encompassing, and you can't even, it's unfathomable to think about the source of all creation. It's to try to put God into words, really, even. I mean, the Hebrews understood this. That's why they couldn't pronounce the name of God, because it's so massive. And to think that we could comprehend this or explain this easily is just, right, we can't. But we can try. That's the reason we developed language and vocabulary, to try to put words to that which is really ineffable and unutterable, which is really beyond mental comprehension. But what we do is we attune to the God within us. We recognize the God within us. I believe that the divine source, God, is within each and every one of us. And when we recognize that we are one with God's source, when we recognize this light within us, this power within us, we start to attune to that. We start to remember our eternal nature. Now, I call our eternal nature the soul, and it's been called or referred to the soul for millennia, which is why I like that term, because I refer back to a lot of this ancient wisdom. Even in religion, you hear the word soul being used. And I think it's pretty fair to say that most people recognize the soul as our eternal nature, our eternal self, the part of us that exists beyond form. If our soul is eternal, historically, to be eternal is to be a God. So if the soul is eternal, that means the soul is the divine aspect of us. So that's why I call myself a soul embodiment guide, for example, because to embody your soul is to embody your divinity. Your soul is the divine that is you, the truest essence of you, the unique aspect of the divine that is you. Not the divine in all things, the unique aspect of the divine that is you. And I believe that that soul, we choose to come to earth. We choose to experience physicality. We choose to inhabit a body in order to have the experience of ourselves in form. It's a gift to be here. It is a massive gift to be here, to be alive. Suffering is when we do not recognize the eternal nature and we get lost in form. Again, very different conversation. But when we remember the God within, the light within, the truth within, and we begin to attune to that, to recognize that, then we start talking about the embodiment of your divinity. And to embody your divinity is to align your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your choices, your actions to this eternal truth that is you. When the soul chose to come here onto earth and to inhabit itself in form, it is what forms our physicality. And what that means is the body is like a tuning fork. The body is how we access our soul's truth. We can bring our vision inward instead of getting lost in form, lost in the external world, lost in what other people think and want and expect and demand, and tune the vision, the third eye, into the inner self, to the energy of the body. We can start to attune to the soul truth. Again, this is where it gets multi-layered. Nothing is black and white. Everything is simple and complex at the same time. And the body also contains the subconscious, which is what we've received from the external. And the body also contains past traumas, inherited beliefs. All of that is contained within the body. But the heart is the multidimensional aspect of you. The mind has the consciousness and the capacity to direct your energy and awareness into yourself. So we start to, for me, because I believe that the soul is your eternal self, is your divinity, it vibrates at the frequency of divine love. So your soul vibrates at the frequency of divine love. Now, what contains divine love within you is your own heart. And this is how we access the divine within us, is through the heart. Your heart is a portal to the cosmos. Your heart is the gateway to your divinity. A lot of people hold unconscious armoring around the heart that affects not only how you show up in relationships, but also your ability to access the divine. Which is why I do a lot of heart work with people, a lot of heart activations and heart clearings, because it's very important to truly go into the depths of your heart to access that source of divine love, eternal love within you. Mary Magdalene, for example, would say that it's about overflowing with love. And we have this human idea that I have to give love or receive love, when really love is who and what you are. So you start to access this divine love. And then you begin to align everything, the thoughts, the beliefs, the choices, the actions, to divine love. It's not that you get rid of your ego. So what is the ego? Ego is the part of you that believes you are purely physical. You are just form, nothing else. The ego therefore believes in separation. I am me in this form, you're you in that form, and therefore we are separate. And then it can create all sorts of things. I'm either better than you, I'm worse than you. It creates this idea that I can kill you and not harm me, for example, because it doesn't recognize the divine within oneself or in the other, because you can't truly recognize the divine in another person until you recognize the divine within you. And then you realize we are all one, but it's not one at the expense of oneself, because if you are one with God and the other is one with God, you're equal. You don't sacrifice yourself, for example, for that other person. You don't have to sacrifice yourself for the God that you already are. Whole different conversation about the ways in which we essentially define love based on separation instead of defining love based on union with the divine we are. Okay, so let's come back to this conversation around the ego. We're not getting rid of it. We are aligning the ego mind, because the ego mind is different than your conscious mind. We're aligning the ego mind, the part of you that believes you're separate, unworthy, holds shame, holds guilt, wants to blame, feel powerless, the part of you that feels unworthy. All of these are aspects of the ego. Now, these are collective wounds that I see in individuals around the world when I work with them one-on-one in coaching containers. I see these same wounds in people around the world. I face them within myself. I couldn't do this work if I wasn't constantly attuning to my own divinity and clearing these wounds, right? For 15 years, I've been doing this. And we align these wounds, we heal these wounds by accessing the divine love that we are, by accessing our divinity, and using the power of that to shine light on, literally shine your light on the darkness of these wounds, the shadows, subconscious, so that you then allow more and more of your soul's light, your eternal truth to inhabit you. You literally fill your body, let's say the darkness of matter, you fill your body with light, the divine light you are. It's the merging of the light and the dark, become one within you. You do this through the power of your heart. You do this by accessing your soul truth in and through your body and aligning. Is this thought in alignment with my soul truth? Is this thought in alignment with divine love? I go further into this in a free 12 days of transformation that I'm offering. This podcast episode is coming after January 11th, but it will be a new course that's available on my website. We're doing it collectively January 11th through the 22nd of 2026, but it will be available on the website as a free course that you can sign up for. So just go to thepathtosovereignty.com. I'll put the link below and you can sign up to receive this. We'll literally guide you every day as to how to do this. It explains this in more detail so that it's really embodied and practical for you as to how to shift the beliefs and your emotions and to unravel yourself from these old patterns, okay? So that way you can really figure out how to do this and it's not just learning the concept of this. You are attuning everything to the truth of who you are, and you're releasing all that you're not. That's exactly what I guide people to do in my containers, whether it be the retreats I offer or the coaching or the Temple of Divine Feminine Power. We're constantly attuning to the truth of who you are, releasing what you're not. And you are then shifting how you show up in the world. Instead of taking the world in, the external, which is really none of that's your truth. You're taking that in and making it yours when you're an ego. The soul, you connect to the soul truth, you radiate that out. You live from the inside out. Very different way of being in the world. That's sovereignty. Now, sovereignty is to reign, sovereign, R-E-I-G-N, to reign over oneself, to be your own master, to be queen or king of your own domain, is to be sovereign. You are your own authority. You cannot be your own authority if you are allowing the external, other people, inherited beliefs, subconscious programming, old traumas to decide for you. So sovereignty is about coming into self, deep levels of self-knowledge in order to attune to the divine that you are, to then align your thoughts and emotions and choices and actions to the truth of who you are, through the frequency of divine love, not human love, to release all that you're not, those old wounds I started to talk about, the shame, the guilt, the self-doubt, the unworthiness, fear, powerlessness, victimhood, blame. You're releasing all of that. You're releasing the subconscious programming. You're releasing the past traumas. You're releasing the inherited beliefs. As you align continuously, it's like a spiral process, as you align to the truth of who you are. As you do this, you create a lot more space in your body, your soul light, your soul inhabits you more fully, and then you're radiating that out. And that is a power that you have that no one can take away. No one can give to you and no one can take it away. I used to be a criminal prosecutor and an attorney for 7 years, and I thought I had a lot of power, but it was power that was granted. And when I chose to leave the profession, that power, quote, went away. And it took me years to really access this divine power within me that is invincible. And it's the only thing that creates true freedom, because you show up differently. And it has shifted my relationships as I've unraveled from these false forms of love, is what I call them, around self-sacrifice, self-denial, self-silencing, lack of boundaries, not speaking your truth, hiding parts of self, right? All of these wounds that men and women have that affect our ability to be intimate, to be truly loved for who we are, that affect our ability to experience what we want to experience in relationships, sacred union, and sacred sexuality. All of this is affected by these wounds. And as we clear these from ourselves and we align more and more to divine love within, we get to experience more and more of the truth of who we are, which is more love, which is more joy, which is more wealth and abundance. That internal state of being that you cultivate. So when I work with clients, for example, we are working with frequency. We are shifting energetically. We are working with emotions. We're working with the mind and the thoughts and the beliefs, because you are a multidimensional being. Sometimes old traumas come up, sometimes old karmas come up, and we work with all of these, because all of this is about aligning to the truth, releasing what is not, aligning to the truth, releasing what is not. It's a continual process. And I would be honored to support you on that path to sovereignty. You can start with the free 12 days of transformation course. I'll put the link below. You can sign up for the online Temple of Divine Feminine Power if you want monthly support. We go deep into womb wisdom, sacred pleasure, boundaries, speaking your truth. The list goes on. You can work in a one-on-one divine activation portal with me. And I also lead retreats. An international retreat that I have coming up in 2026 is another initiation into divine feminine power. And every woman walked away transformed last year. And I'm very excited for us to go back to continue working with the energetics of these ancient temples of the goddess to re-fortify the grids and open the portals even deeper, so that this ancient wisdom can come into modern day consciousness. Be happy to chat with you, answer any questions. If you like this episode of the Soul Sovereignty podcast, just hit the like button, comment, leave any questions that you have. I really condensed a lot of seemingly complex information. We could go and talk about this for hours and hours and hours. I could probably write volumes about this alone, this question alone, into 25 minutes. And so put some questions. I can always take it into another podcast episode and share it with a friend who can benefit. Not everybody has the consciousness to even want to embody their divinity. And if you do, then there's a way, and you will know in your soul if this path is right for you. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you in the next Soul Sovereignty podcast.